Why discipline is the greatest challenge for traders. It is not a lack of knowledge. It is not a lack of tools or indicators. It is not even a lack of strategy. What most traders lack is the discipline to execute what they already know. Discipline is not exciting. It does not deliver the thrill of a last second entry or the dopamine rush of a breakout win. Discipline is boring, quiet, repetitive. And that is why it's the most brutal challenge a trader will ever face. Every trader starts out with dreams of freedom, wealth, and control. But very few are ready for the war that begins not with the market, but with themselves. The battlefield isn't the chart, it's the mind behind the chart. You are not fighting the S&P or crude oil or Tesla. You are fighting the part of yourself that wants to feel good more than it wants to trade right. The human brain was not designed for trading. It was designed to chase rewards and avoid pain, instantly. This wiring worked well when we were hunting animals or escaping danger. But in the markets, it's a trap. We chase the high of a winning trade and avoid the discomfort of taking a loss. That primitive impulse forces traders to abandon their plan the moment pressure builds. They know they should cut the loss. They know they should stay out. They know their system says wait, but they don't, because in the heat of the moment, logic burns out and emotion takes the wheel. This is the root of trading failure, the constant disconnect between what we know and what we do. Discipline is the bridge between knowledge and execution, and that bridge is fragile. It must be rebuilt every single day, every single trade. There is no finish line, no autopilot. No system in the world can protect a trader from themselves. That is the uncomfortable truth. Let's go deeper. Discipline in trading means doing the hard thing even when nobody is watching. There's no boss over your shoulder, no supervisor reviewing your mistakes, no penalty for breaking your rules, except the slow bleed of your capital and your confidence. Most traders don't lack intelligence. In fact, intelligence can be a double-edged sword. Smart people are excellent at rationalizing bad decisions. They know how to tell themselves compelling stories. This setup is different. The news will turn it around. I'll add one more contract and it'll bounce. These narratives feed the ego, but they starve your discipline. Ego is the assassin of discipline. The ego cannot admit being wrong. The disciplined trader accepts that being wrong is not failure, it is part of the game. The market does not reward certainty. It rewards humility, control, and patience. That's why the disciplined trader cuts losers fast, holds winners long, and sits out when there's nothing to do. That's the trifecta of professional behavior, and it goes directly against everything your emotional brain wants. Your brain craves action. Your account needs restraint. The undisciplined trader equates doing something with being productive. But trading is not a factory. It's not about volume. It's about precision. Great traders make money by not trading most of the time. Discipline means waiting, observing, letting the market come to you, not chasing it. That's the difference between the amateur and the professional. The amateur reacts. The professional responds. The amateur sees a candle move and jumps. The professional sees the same candle, feels the impulse, then pauses, breathes, confirms, and only then acts, if the setup still holds. That pause is the gap between failure and success, and that pause is discipline. But here's what makes it harder. Discipline has no instant reward. The undisciplined trade feels good immediately. The revenge trade, the over-leveraged bet, the doubled-down loser. These give you emotional highs, short-term relief, or even lucky wins. But over time, they hollow out your equity curve. Disciplined trading feels like nothing. No drama, no adrenaline, just small, consistent actions repeated day after day. It is silent work, boring work, invisible work, but it builds something real, something lasting. Discipline is the compound interest of trading behavior. It starts small, but over time, it builds resilience, confidence, professionalism, and profit. The trader who has discipline becomes unshakable. When others panic, they stay calm. When others overtrade, they wait. When others seek validation from chat rooms or Twitter, they trust their system. Discipline builds inner independence, and without that, you are a slave to the market's every tick. Let's be blunt. The market doesn't care about your feelings. It doesn't care about your hopes or your dreams. It punishes emotional trading with surgical precision. The market is not your friend. It's your opponent. You don't beat the market. You learn to stop beating yourself. And that requires a level of self-control that most people will never develop. Why? Because discipline requires sacrifice. You have to sacrifice the thrill of randomness for the stillness of structure, sacrifice impulse for intention, sacrifice what feels good now for what brings success later. That's hard, really hard, especially when the people around you chase excitement, especially when social media glorifies risk, especially when your losses trigger shame and your wins tempt pride, especially when every instinct screams at you to do the exact thing you shouldn't do. This is where most give up. They say, I'm just not cut out for this. But the truth is, discipline isn't a personality trait. It's a skill. It's built like muscle, over time, through reps, through practice. Nobody is born disciplined. They become disciplined by choice. And that choice must be made every day. It's not a one-time event. It's not a motivational video or a breakthrough moment. It's a grind, a habit, a decision to hold the line when your emotions tell you to abandon it. And here's the paradox. Discipline gives you freedom. When you follow a proven system, you remove uncertainty, you reduce stress, you avoid overtrading, you stop second-guessing. That structure becomes your edge. The discipline becomes your power. So while others live in chaos, reacting to every market wiggle, you stand firm. While others swing from euphoria to despair, you stay neutral. While others burn out chasing action, you build sustainable success. This is the mindset that separates winners from survivors and survivors from quitters. Discipline is not about being perfect. It's about being consistent. It's not about never slipping. It's about correcting course quickly. It's not about suppression. It's about alignment. When your rules align with your goals and your actions align with your rules, that's discipline. And when you reach that level, trading becomes less of a battle and more of a rhythm. It becomes a professional craft. It becomes your business. It becomes your freedom. Not because the market changed, but because you did. The enemies of trading discipline. Trading is a war. But unlike other wars, the biggest threats don't come from outside. They come from within. Every trader walks onto the battlefield armed with charts, strategies, and maybe even a funded account. But what kills their performance is not a lack of tools. It's the enemies of discipline that live in their own mind. There are 3 of them. They work in silence. They don't show up on your screen, and they don't send alerts. But they are always there, waiting for a moment of weakness to take over your trading decisions. Let's expose them, one by one. Enemy number 1, emotional reflexes. You know the moment. The market spikes, a candle surges. Suddenly your heart rate jumps, your breath shortens, and your finger hovers over the mouse. Click. You're in a trade. You don't know exactly why, you didn't plan it, you didn't wait for confirmation, but it felt right. It felt urgent. It felt like money was being made, and you didn't want to miss it. That, right there, is emotional reflex. It is the knee-jerk reaction that bypasses your strategy and takes control of your trades. It's that hit of adrenaline when price breaks out, that rush of blood when the account turns green or red, that internal scream that says, do something now. Most traders are unaware of how often they're operating in this state. They think they're being rational, but they're reacting to fear and greed in real time. This is not trading. This is gambling with a chart in the background. Here's the truth. The more emotional the market gets, the more you must slow down. But most traders do the opposite. When volatility rises, they speed up. They start chasing, adjusting stops, doubling down. They abandon their plans and try to fight the beast. What they don't realize is that emotion is not a tool, it's a trap. Emotions are not evil, but in trading, they're dangerous. The market doesn't reward emotional accuracy. It punishes it. The more you act on instinct instead of process, the more erratic your results become. Emotional trades may win short-term, but they destroy long-term consistency. Discipline is not the absence of emotion, it's the ability to act in spite of emotion. The professional trader feels the same impulses, but they don't let those impulses dictate action. They recognize the surge of adrenaline and choose to pause, not react. That pause is the gateway to control. That pause separates traders from gamblers. If you don't pause, you don't trade, you just click. Enemy number 2, lack of a clear plan. You cannot follow discipline if there's no path to follow. Most traders claim to have a strategy, but ask them the following. What are your exact entry criteria? What makes a setup valid and what invalidates it? How much are you risking per trade? When do you get out, win or lose? What makes you stay out of the market? Silence. Because for many, strategy just means a few moving averages and a gut feeling. It's more hope than logic, more art than structure. But trading is not abstract. If your system isn't clear, you're not executing a plan, you're reacting to randomness. And discipline does not survive in chaos. If your rules are vague, your behavior will be inconsistent. You'll interpret charts differently based on your mood. You'll start seeing almost setups. You'll stretch definitions to justify action. That is not discipline. That is deception. Clarity creates control. Ambiguity creates excuses. The brain seeks certainty, and in the absence of a concrete plan, it will default to emotion and instinct. That's how discipline dies, not in failure, but in confusion. A real trading plan must be boringly specific. Not, I'll buy when the trend looks strong, but I buy when price closes above the 20 EMA, volume is above average, and RSI confirms momentum. Not, I'll stop out if it looks bad, but I stop out when price closes 2% below my entry and breaks the last structural low. Discipline thrives on structure. The more rules you have, the less temptation you face. You don't argue with the market. You don't negotiate with your fear. You simply follow your map. Without a plan, every candle is a threat. With a plan, every candle is data. And data does not trigger panic. It informs action. Enemy number 3, false beliefs about the market. The most dangerous lies are the ones we tell ourselves. In trading, these lies often sound like this. The market owes me after that loss. I just need to get back to break even. This stock is bound to reverse. It always does. I'll add more. It can't go much lower. These aren't strategies. They're beliefs, and they are built on faulty logic. One of the most toxic beliefs a trader can hold is that the market is somehow fair or personal, that if you've had a bad streak, you're due for a win, that the market will eventually feel sorry and reverse, that losses are bad luck and wins are validation. This kind of thinking destroys discipline because it removes responsibility. Instead of reviewing mistakes, traders with these beliefs blame the news, the broker, the Fed, the algos, the whales. Anything but their own decisions. False beliefs also breed overconfidence. After a win, they think they've cracked the code. I knew it. They start sizing up, breaking rules, feeling invincible, until the next loss slaps them back into reality. Trading isn't about being right, it's about being consistent. The disciplined trader knows the market doesn't care. It doesn't owe you. It doesn't remember your last trade. It has no memory, no mercy, no morality. It is pure probability. And your job is not to outsmart it, it's to work within it. To do that, you must drop the myths and adopt these truths. Every trade is independent. Losses are part of the system. Risk is unavoidable. Discipline is your only defense. Discipline cannot coexist with delusion. The clearer your worldview, the cleaner your execution. If you believe the market is chaotic, your strategy must be simple. If you believe the market is random, your edge must come from risk control. And if you believe in probability, then losing trades are not failures. They're statistical inevitabilities. The traders who survive are not the most confident. They're the most realistic. They don't pray for miracles. They prepare for outcomes. They don't argue with price. They adapt to price. False beliefs create emotional attachment. Discipline breaks that attachment. When you trade from belief, you cling to hope. When you trade with discipline, you accept truth. And that acceptance is what keeps you in the game when everyone else is blowing up. If you want to win in trading, you must declare war on these 3 enemies: emotional reflexes, unclear plans, and delusional beliefs. Not once, but every single day. Because these enemies don't rest, they don't take breaks, and they live inside you. You can't remove them, but you can outwork them, you can outplan them, you can outlast them. And that is what discipline is all about. How to build discipline. Start with a clear system. You cannot follow what does not exist. Discipline without a system is not discipline. It's self-imposed suffering. You're not being consistent. You're just trying to control chaos with willpower. And in trading, willpower without structure is a losing game. If you want to be disciplined, you must first create something worth following. A real trading system is not a collection of vague ideas. It is a set of rules so clear that you could hand it to another trader, and they would trade the same way you do. If your system depends on how you feel that day, it's not a system. It's a guessing machine dressed up as strategy. Let's break down what a clear system looks like and why it's the cornerstone of true discipline. Step 1. Clear entry rules. No gray zones. Most traders lose discipline because they trade in the fog. They kinda like the setup. It looks promising. It feels right. These are not entry signals. They're emotional projections, and they open the door to inconsistency. A disciplined system starts with non-negotiable entry criteria. That means you know exactly what a valid setup looks like. You know exactly which market conditions you avoid. You know what confirms the trade and what invalidates it. No maybe, no almost. No, but this time feels different. Example, I buy only when price closes above the 50 EMA, the MACD histogram is above 0, and RSI is rising from below 40. This is binary. The setup is either present or it's not. You don't have to think. You don't have to feel. You just have to observe and act. That is where discipline starts, in the removal of ambiguity. Without clear rules, you are forced to decide every time. And when your brain is under pressure, decisions become emotional. You start stretching your definitions. You justify setups that don't actually qualify. And once that line is crossed, discipline is gone. Step 2. Predefine stop loss and target before the trade. The easiest way to lose money is to move your stop loss after the trade is live. The second easiest way is to move your target mid-trade out of fear or greed. Discipline dies in the moment if the plan wasn't set before the moment arrived. Your system must include a fixed stop loss rule. This could be a percentage, an ATR multiple, a structural level, or a dollar amount, but it must be written and consistent, a defined profit target. Whether you use R multiples, support resistance zones, or trailing exits, you must know what your exit looks like before you enter. Without this, you're flying blind. And under stress, you will do the wrong thing. You'll cut winners short. You'll hold losers too long. You'll trade not from logic, but from hope and fear. Think like a sniper, not a machine gunner. A sniper doesn't pull the trigger until every parameter is locked. The wind, the distance, the target. In trading, your trigger is your mouse. You don't click unless the exit plan is loaded. Step 3. Pre-trade checklist. Like a pilot, not a gambler. Pilots don't guess. They don't wing it. They go through a checklist every single flight, even if they've flown the same route for 20 years. Why? Because they understand one thing. Humans are unreliable under pressure. So they build systems to protect against human error. You should do the same. Before you take a trade, you should tick through a checklist, a literal list, on paper, on screen. Doesn't matter. What matters is that it's externalized. You don't rely on memory. You rely on structure. A trading checklist might include, is this a valid setup according to my entry rules? Am I within my risk limit for the day? Have I set my stop loss and take profit? Is there a major news event that could interfere? Is the market behaving normally or erratically? If you can't check every box, you don't trade. It's that simple. Discipline is not about pushing harder. It's about removing friction. When you checklist your behavior, you reduce mental clutter. You make it easier to follow your plan. You reduce the need for willpower. You automate integrity. Step 4. Reduce decision-making by automating where possible. The fewer decisions you make in real time, the more disciplined you become. Why? Because the real-time market is a psychological minefield. Your emotions spike, your biases fire, you overanalyze, you hesitate, you act too soon or too late. You do everything but follow the plan. To combat that, your system should do as much heavy lifting as possible before you even open the chart. This means scanning tools that filter setups for you, preset position sizes based on account risk, auto-populated stop loss and take profit levels, trade journaling templates that auto-log each entry. By removing repetitive or subjective decisions, you make room for what matters, sticking to the core strategy. You don't waste energy deciding whether to risk 2% or 3%. That's been decided. You don't think twice about chasing a candle. Your system already said no. Discipline thrives in simplicity. Complexity kills consistency. Step 5. Review and refine your system, not during trades, but after. Traders often break discipline because they lose faith in their system mid-trade. A few losses in a row, and suddenly doubt creeps in. Maybe this setup doesn't work anymore. Maybe I should tweak the stop. Maybe I should skip this one. That is a recipe for emotional chaos. You should never evaluate your system while using it. That's like a surgeon changing techniques mid-surgery because it's taking longer than expected. You stick to the process until it's over. You evaluate after with a clear mind. This is where your trading journal becomes a weapon. You log every trade with brutal honesty. Did I follow my entry rules? Did I manage the trade according to plan? Did I break discipline, and why? What patterns emerge over time? This feedback loop is where real discipline is forged. Not in the heat of the moment, but in the quiet review of your behavior. That's how professionals operate. That's how systems evolve. And that's how discipline becomes a habit, not a hope. Final thoughts. Structure equals freedom. Most traders think freedom means doing what you want, when you want. In reality, freedom in trading comes from structure, from systems, from rules that protect you from yourself. The more structured your approach, the less mental energy you waste. The fewer mistakes you make, the less reactive you become, and the more consistent you grow. Discipline is not a feeling. It's not a mood. It's not inspiration. It's a framework you build in advance and follow no matter how you feel. You don't wait for motivation. You don't trust your gut. You trust your system. And in doing so, you create something rare in this game, an edge that doesn't erode under pressure. Because charts change, volatility changes. The market evolves, but your discipline, that stays. That is your constant. That is your armor. And it all begins with the system you choose to obey. Most traders are waiting for the perfect moment, waiting to feel ready, waiting for motivation to kick in. They tell themselves, once I feel more disciplined, I'll stick to my rules. Once I recover this loss, I'll be more serious. Next week, I'll really follow my plan. And that's the trap, because discipline is not something you feel, it's something you do. It is not an emotion, it's not inspiration, it's not a sudden epiphany. Discipline is a habit, a behavior, a decision repeated until it becomes default. And if you wait until you feel like being disciplined, you will never start. Here's the brutal truth. If your trading habits are built on how you feel, you're not a trader, you're a reactor. So the question is simple. How do you train discipline like a skill, not chase it like a mood? Let's break it down. Log everything, because memory is a liar. The first step to building discipline is to make your behavior visible. Most traders operate from memory and emotion. They say, I think I followed my plan, or I'm pretty sure I had a reason for that trade. But in reality, they don't remember the details, only the outcome. This is why you must keep a trading journal, not just for your wins and losses, but for your thinking, your decisions, your psychology. Every trade should be logged with brutal honesty. Why did I enter? What was my emotional state? Did I follow my system? Did I break any rules? What did I learn? Over time, this record becomes a mirror. You start to notice patterns. You catch the excuses you keep making. You realize which emotions lead to bad decisions. And most importantly, you create accountability. When your behavior is written down, it becomes real. You can't hide from it. And that pressure, that awareness, is how you begin to correct yourself. Journaling is not sexy. It won't give you a dopamine hit. But it is the foundation of professional discipline. Every consistent trader logs. Every losing trader just remembers. Which one do you want to be? Punish rule violations and make them hurt. If there are no consequences for breaking your rules, you will break them again. That's human nature. We learn through feedback. Touch a hot stove, feel pain, never do it again. That's how behavior is shaped. But in trading, there's a dangerous delay. Sometimes breaking the rules makes you money. You skip the stop loss and the trade bounces. You over-leverage and it works. You chase a breakout and it explodes. These are the worst outcomes possible because they reinforce bad behavior. They reward your emotional impulses. They train your brain to think, see, breaking the rules isn't so bad. Until it is. Until the day it doesn't work and the damage is catastrophic. This is why you must create internal consequences, regardless of the trade outcome. If you break a rule, even if the trade wins, you must pay a price. Missed your stop? Shut down your platform for the day. Took a trade outside your plan? Sit out the next 2 setups. Overtraded? Reduce your size for the next session. These are self-imposed penalties. They aren't punishment. They are training. You are teaching yourself that discipline matters more than results. Because in trading, long-term results only come from long-term discipline. There is no shortcut. And if you don't hold yourself accountable, the market will. Build a discipline-friendly environment. Discipline is harder when temptation is everywhere. If your screen is flashing news headlines, Twitter feeds, and hot stock alerts, good luck staying focused. The modern trader is bombarded with noise, and all that noise triggers emotion. It increases FOMO, it distorts judgment, it pulls you away from your process. So the solution is simple. Design an environment that supports discipline, not sabotages it. Here's how. Turn off the news, especially during trading hours. Log out of social media, or block it completely. Hide buy-sell buttons until your checklist is complete. Limit your daily trades, and stick to that cap. Use alerts instead of staring at the chart all day. Create friction between impulse and action. Make it harder to break your rules. When your environment is clean and intentional, your mind becomes clearer, and clarity is the soil where discipline grows. Remember, professionals engineer their process. Amateurs leave it to chance. Treat discipline like going to the gym, consistency over intensity. Most traders want discipline to be a single heroic moment. They imagine one powerful decision that transforms their behavior forever. That's a fantasy. Discipline is not a breakthrough. It's a daily repetition. Just like going to the gym, you don't build strength with one workout. You build it with consistent reps. You build it by showing up on the days you don't feel like it. You build it by turning small wins into daily habits. In trading, that means following your plan even when it feels boring. Sticking to your stop loss even when you're tempted to move it. Sitting on your hands when your system says no trade. Logging your emotions after every session, not just the big ones. Do it once? That's effort. Do it every day? That's discipline. The compound interest of behavior is real. The small choices you make today, to wait, to follow, to review, multiply over time, and eventually they become who you are. You are no longer trying to be disciplined. You are disciplined because it's no longer a decision, it's your default mode. Discipline is the real edge. People spend years searching for the perfect strategy, the best indicator, the magic entry signal, the holy grail. But here's the harsh truth. There is no perfect strategy. And even if there were, it wouldn't work without discipline. Because the edge is not in the system, it's in the execution. It's not how often you win, it's how often you do what you said you'd do. That is what separates pros from amateurs. Pros don't need motivation. They don't wait to feel right. They've trained their minds and systems to execute regardless of mood. Discipline is their routine. Structure is their edge. Habit is their armor. And you can build the same if you stop chasing inspiration and start doing the work. Final word, start today, stay small, repeat forever. You don't need a full makeover to become disciplined. You need one habit, one checklist, one journal entry, one rule followed. Start there. Keep it simple. Keep it daily. Before long, you'll stop chasing discipline because you'll be living it. That's how real traders are made. The reward for discipline. Why it's worth it. Discipline won't make you win every trade. It won't protect you from losses. It won't turn the market into a predictable machine. But here's what it will do, and it's everything. Discipline keeps you alive. And in this game, survival is victory. Because trading is not about being right all the time. It's about being in the game long enough for the probabilities to pay off. And the only thing that keeps you in the game when the storm hits is discipline. Let's make something clear. The market doesn't care how smart you are. It doesn't care how much you've read. It doesn't care how perfect your strategy looks on paper. What it respects, what it silently rewards, is the trader who can endure. The one who shows up every day, follows the plan, takes the hit, and keeps moving. That's the game. That's the edge. That's the reward. You protect your capital when others are burning theirs. Most traders don't blow up because of a single trade. They blow up because of emotional spirals. A few losing trades, and suddenly they start chasing. They revenge trade, double size, skip their stops. One decision snowballs into another, and before they know it, they're out of the game. But the disciplined trader, they take the loss, they log it, they walk away. That's it. No drama, no revenge, no emotional tailspin. They understand that one trade means nothing in isolation, that risk is the price of admission, that capital protection is the first priority, always. This is why disciplined traders experience smaller drawdowns. They don't let ego turn a bad day into a disaster. They don't let frustration hijack their risk parameters. They bleed, but they never hemorrhage. And because they survive, they get to fight again. And in this game, survival equals leverage. You win without arrogance and lose without collapse. Discipline brings emotional balance. You don't ride the high of a green streak. You don't spiral from a red one. You trade like a professional, detached from outcomes, anchored to process. That means when you win, you don't get cocky. When you lose, you don't fall apart. You stay in the middle, composed, focused, ready. This is rare. Most traders let their P&L define their mood. They're euphoric on Tuesday, depressed by Thursday. They measure their worth by the last 5 trades. But the disciplined trader knows your process is who you are, not your profits. This mindset creates emotional resilience. You stop taking losses personally. You stop chasing wins for validation. You start treating trading like a craft, not a casino. You become unshakable. And when everyone else is reacting, you're responding. When others are melting down, you're calmly executing. And that calmness, that consistency, it compounds in your equity, in your confidence, in your freedom. You stay calm when the market panics. There will be days, you know the kind, when everything goes haywire. News breaks, volatility spikes, charts explode, fear spreads like wildfire. That's when the amateurs lose their minds. They abandon their rules. They start guessing, hoping, throwing darts in the dark. And that's when discipline becomes your greatest asset. Because while others panic, you stay in your lane. You check your rules, you manage your size, you cut what needs cutting and keep what needs keeping. You don't chase, you don't freeze, you operate while others react. This is what investors, fund managers, and high net clients want most. Not brilliance, not genius, not magic. They want stability, they want control, they want someone who doesn't break. And that person is the disciplined trader. Whether you manage capital for others or just for yourself, discipline earns trust, first in yourself, then from others. Because when everything else is unstable, you're still standing. That's power, that's influence, that's longevity. You build the one thing money can't buy, consistency. The biggest reward for discipline isn't flashy. It won't get you followers. It won't make headlines. But it's what separates professionals from everyone else. Consistency in your execution, in your emotions, in your returns. Discipline doesn't promise massive wins. It promises repeatable action. And from that repeatable action comes a repeatable edge. And from that edge comes compounding performance over months, quarters, years. Investors don't care if you had a lucky month. They care if you can produce over a decade. And you can't do that without consistency. And you can't get consistency without discipline. It's the engine, the foundation, the silent force behind every great trader's success. Trading isn't for the smartest, it's for the most consistent. This truth punches hard, but it's liberating. You don't have to be a genius to win in trading. You don't need to predict the future. You don't need to time every top or bottom. You don't need to impress anyone. What you need is this: a system you trust, a plan you follow, a mindset that doesn't flinch, and the discipline to do it every damn day. That's it. You can outlast traders with fancier tools. You can outperform traders with stronger opinions. You can survive storms that wipe out the undisciplined. Because in the long game, and make no mistake, this is a long game, discipline always wins. And here's the kicker: discipline is earned, not given. You don't get discipline by reading about it. You don't get it from motivational speeches or highlight reels. You get it the way athletes get strong, through reps, through action, through routine, through doing it even when it's not fun. That's how it hardens. That's how it sticks. That's how it becomes you. You want freedom? You want profits? You want to trade for a living? Then forget the hacks, forget the signals, forget the fantasy, and build discipline, brick by brick. Because when you do, you will become unstoppable. Not because the market is easy, not because you win every trade, but because you never lose control. And in the end, control is everything. In this game, you don't rise because you guess better. You rise because you last longer. Discipline isn't about perfection. It's about staying in control when most traders lose it. It's what keeps your losses small, your head clear, and your system intact, no matter how wild the market gets. You don't need more signals. You need sharper focus, stronger habits, and a mind that doesn't flinch. And that's exactly what we build at Trading Mindset Lab. If you're tired of emotional trading, if you're done blowing up accounts, if you're ready to think, act, and perform like a pro, hit subscribe. Join a community where we train discipline like a skill, not a theory. Because in trading, mindset isn't part of the game, it is the game.